Ground rules before the debate. First of all, please, before you start your speech, please make sure that you're audible. Mention your preferred gender pronoun, if any, and please mention your preferred POI method. Either you want to do it through chat or you want a verbal POI. I need to remind you that the maximum speaking time is 7 minutes and 15 seconds. After that, I will not be writing anything, so you need to wrap your speech up. Committee, will there be a shared stopwatch?
Yes, I will share the screen.
Great. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So after 7:15, I will not be writing anything. Okay. Without further ado, let's just start the debate. I call upon the Prime Minister to hear.
Oh, hold on. Let me share the timer. Okay, you're good to go. I'm sorry. Let's welcome our Prime Minister, Mr. Jason. You're welcome to deliver your speech. Start from now on.
I'm sorry. I think there's a mistake. I think I'm the leader of opposition, and I'm not the Prime Minister in this debate.
God. Yes,
Sorry.
there's this mistake. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's replay this. Everyone, I want you all to welcome our Prime Minister, Miss Caroline. You are welcome to deliver your speech. Start from now on.
I'm sorry, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, Honorable Adjudicator, Oim staff, members of the government and the opposition team, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the staff beforehand for giving me the time and screen to deliver my speech. Allow me to introduce myself and my team as well. My name is Caroline. I stand here as the first speaker of the government team, and as the first speaker, I will be explaining our stance, the purpose of this motion, to what extent do we limit this proposal, as well as arguments. My second speaker, Nadila, will be elaborating some of the last points of my arguments. She will also be asserting the arguments if needed, as well as reviewing statements from the opposition team. My third speaker, Anin, will be summarizing our debate, asserting some of our arguments, as well as reviewing. I'd like to read today's motion once again. Assuming a technology exists which simulates the harm inflicted on victims without physically harming the user, this House would use that technology to punish offenders rather than jail time. As the government, we fully support the implementation of this motion. And first, I would like to define some of the key points of the motion. Offenders are people who commit illegal acts or cause problems in the society. Simulates, it is the act of imitating, in this context, imitating punishments. Punishment is the infliction or imposition of a penalty as retribution for an offense, jail time, we describe this as not only as the time that offenders spends in jail, but we would also like to define this in this context, building to keep offender from not roaming freely in the society. So the status quo in this debate, in this pandemic situation, especially today in Indonesia, we face a health problem that is getting bigger and bigger. Crowding, as what it is happening today, becomes the main reason of increasing transmitting diseases. And moving to my next point, which could also be considered as the urgency, research has shown that prison is not effective, as it does not reduce crime. Despite placing criminals in prison, it may be that offenders are encouraged to reoffend after finishing their sentence. However, do they reoffend because of what they are surrounded by, more crime? And what causes criminals to step forward and end their lives in prisons? A tragic trend which has increased in recent years. And I would like to limit this motion to the current situation, the current pandemic situation. Moving on to my arguments. So the first one is we are jail time or prisons, there's a lot of cons to that. And the first one is cost to taxpayer. Most of, let's say, Indonesian prisons are state funded, which means taxpayers has to pay to care for prisoners. And the second one is the effects on families. So placing the offender in jail time abruptly removes a family member and other members that of the offender need to learn to adjust to the change. We have to consider the context in this pandemic situation that is prone to mental health concerns as well. So family, they need to stick to their closest ones. And the third arguments of this cons of jail time, research has shown, research has shown, as what I've said today, back then, that prison is not effective. It does not reduce crime. And moving on to my second argument, by implementing this jail time, which mostly includes crowding in places, this is not the implementation that we wanted in this pandemic, as it is going to increase the risk of transmitting virus. And the third one is the technology, time efficiency. If the victims of the offenders can get what this technology simulates, why not? I mean, the advancement of technology can give the satisfaction and the security needed by the victims of this offender. So why not? And these arguments will be furthermore elaborated by my next speaker. So to sum up, why do we support this motion? First, the cons of jail time, as what I've explained in three frames. Second, jail time does not support the COVID protocol. And third, with the advancement of technology, if we can give what the victims want without harming the offenders, why not? That is all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that fine speech. To open the case of opposition, I call upon the Leader of Opposition here.
Right. Am I audible?
Yes, you're
Hello?
audible.
All right, great.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think the microphone is turned off.
Right. Apologies for that. Right. I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, honorable adjudicators, my honorable government side, and people of attendance, ladies and gentlemen of the court. Ladies and gentlemen, as the leader of opposition, I will be speaking to you tonight on opposing the motion that assuming a technology exists which stimulates the harm inflicted on victims without physically harming the user, the House would use the technology to punish offenders rather than jail time. We oppose this motion, but before we go through the arguments and rebuttals, I would first like to introduce to you the people who will be accompanying me tonight. The second speaker will be Akil, the deputy leader of opposition, and the third speaker of the opposition team will be Raski, who will be the opposition whip. Now, a few good points that has been made by the government side of the team regarding this motion. First and foremost, they highlighted the urgency of this debate, which is that prison or jail time is not an effective way to reduce crime. However, they have not elaborated on exactly why this solution would be a more effective way to reduce crime. How exactly does stimulating the harm inflicted on the victims to the offenders exactly reduce crime? Does the government want us to believe that pain is a deterrent? And this is not just physical pain, mind you. Will not harm them physically, as the motion has explained. As such, the government wants us to believe that by psychologically harming the offender, it will be a better deterrent in crime rather than jail time. And this is not true, ladies and gentlemen of the court, because if we harm these already mentally deranged offenders who will already be mentally broken enough to actually commit to these heinous crimes, to break them psychologically more would make them more of a nuisance once they are released to society. And this is counterproductive to the ideal world that the government proposes. The next point that the government made is that it will be a cost and, or rather, an insufficient, an ineffective. It will bring about a heavy cost to the taxpayers of the society. However, we rebut this by saying that this cost is not for the comfort of the offenders. This cost is an investment for the safety of the public, because as the government themselves have stated, the purpose of the prison themselves is to keep these criminals, these offenders away from the public. So in this case, we would like to propose from the opposition that the cost to the taxpayer is not for the comfort of these offenders, but an investment of safety for the general public. The next um, the next point that the government has made would be that connecting it to the pandemic situation by saying that it increases the risk of transmission by crowding. However, ladies and gentlemen of the court, we are well aware that every country in this case has already a knowledge of the pandemic that has been striking us. And so we believe that there are many facilities that are already implementing health protocols that will, decrease the risk of transmission. And so we believe the argument not to be strong enough unless it will be elaborated later on. Now, to move on to the points of the opposition, we would like to highlight the fact that the justice system, as of this moment, in the status quo, is not yet perfect and it is flawed. And that bringing this technology to the mix of the justice system that is already flawed will only bring and be a catalyst to these problems, to these already existing problems. What are these problems, ladies and gentlemen of the court? One of which, which is the most major, is discrimination, ladies and gentlemen of the court. Discrimination towards those of the lower class in society, those who are not able to afford better lawyers to take their case. The discrimination against people of color, people of minority who are biased, who society have biases towards or against. Ladies and gentlemen, because of this bias, because of this discrimination pre-existing in these times, we believe that this technology will only serve to make it so that make the justice system more flawed. Because we believe, ladies and gentlemen, that jail time is implemented in the status quo because it is reversible. We do not know, ladies and gentlemen, if the offenders are actually inherent in their crimes. To give you an example and to give you an image, we will give you a scenario. For example, if we were to say someone who built a bridge and that bridge apparently killed off 15 drivers who were driving at that time, and this person who built the bridge was held liable for this crime for involuntary manslaughter. And with this technology, it would be stimulated. The 15 people who got harmed during that accident would be implanted onto this this bridge builder, and he or she would actually get the same treatment, the same punishment as someone who actually premeditated this, a serial killer who actually plans to kill 15 people. And this is not just for the offenders, but for the criminals as well.
So what makes us different from the criminals when we traumatize them too? So and also, but putting that aside, even if there will be the mental pain inflicted upon them, they have preparation for that. What about the victims? What about the assault victims? They have no preparation for the assault that they actually faced. But these people, these criminals, they have preparation. They know that they're going to experience this physical pain, and then what? That's it. So there is so this is not equality at all, and it does not serve any justice for anybody, not for the victim and not for the criminals as well. So my second point is jail exists for a reason. So protection from the victims is is a point that is very, very important in law, and it cannot be it cannot be it cannot be ignored. So we can like talk about domestic abusers and abusers as well. So victims are closer to these people. So if the criminal was to go home, they would go home to the victims. So jail time is there as sort of a time freeze for the criminal. The criminals are confined in jail. No, thank you. So the criminals are confined in jail while the victims move on with their lives with the guarantee that the assaulter won't come from them again, right? So I can assure you, I can also assure you that there is a big chance that these criminals can after receiving the harm from this technology can go back into their habit of being an offender. So we can take a look at so that goes on to my third point, and it is that we can't have a one-dimensional view on the psychology of criminals. So how can you ensure that after receiving punishment from this technology that they can repent? So when you look at the people that go to jail for offenses, there's always a chance that these physical offenses are physical offenses that they've experienced themselves. Because I didn't hear a clear mechanism brought by the government team. No, thank you. Because I didn't hear a clear mechanism brought by the government team, I assume that there will be no thorough background check behind the motives of the crime, and also the reason behind the crime, the psychology behind the crime. So before proceeding, to the, as we can call it, the punishment. So there are a lot of cases like domestic abuse that forms abusive people, or sexual assault victims that turn into sexual offenders as well. So these people, I can guarantee you, won't repent because they've experienced it themselves. And we don't even have to go as far as domestic abusers and sexual offenders. We can also take a look at people in violent gangs. For example, they were supposed to take jail time because they've shot somebody. But these violent people in gangs could also have maybe experienced being shot as well. And then there's also serial killers or people that are psychopaths or sociopaths that don't that don't feel remorse at all. But they will most likely in jail because it is more of a mental, it is more of a mental prison, and it is more of a way of stripping, the light or spotlight from them so that we do not feed into their narcissism. So if we give these people the pain, the physical pain, how will they be able to feel remorse? How will they be able to feel pain? And what justice does that serve towards the victims themselves? So, and we have to take into account that abusive behavior isn't something that can magically disappear just by these abusers having experience from that as well. After the person gets put in the this is not something that can magically disappear after the person gets put in the victim's shoes. It is a mental process that is complex, and it cannot be seen one-dimensional. Thank you.
Thank you. The first speaker from the opposition team spent 7 minutes and 56 seconds. We go to the second speaker from the government team. You may start your speech anytime.
Test, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, my speech will begin in the next sentence. As Deputy Prime Minister, I would like to rebut a few points and address a few clashes that is present within the argument of the other side of the House. First, I would like to outline my points. Why do we believe that this technology should be used to punish offenders instead of using jail time? We believe that this is the perfect alternative to using prison time because we believe that prison time is more stressful and ruins someone's life. The other side of the House agrees that jail time serves as a time freeze for offenders. However, that is exactly why we would like to propose this solution. Because of this time freeze, the chance that someone fails to re-enter society simply because they spend too much time away in isolation inside jail, this increases the chances that they cannot re-enter society successfully. This, in turn, increases another chance that they will become repeat offenders because they do not know how to re-enter society. They will only re-enter society with the only way that they know, which is crime, which just creates more and more problem. Second, the other side of the house says that we do not understand the extent. The other side of the house says that we did not account the time it takes. Apologies. The other side of the house says that we do not. The other side of the house assumes that we will throw out the process of background checks and how we will determine the amount of punishment. We never said this. We never implied this. We never implied that the process of due diligence and courthouse rulings will be ignored in order to carry out this punishment. Therefore, we believe that the other side of the house, also does not understand the extent of pain. Every day, as a society, every day we do our best to not feel pain. We take medicine. We try not to hit our knees. Pain to every living thing in the world is one of the worst feeling that they can imagine, that they can feel and imagine. It is the natural reaction to avoid pain at all costs. Therefore, we believe that this technology delivers short-term trauma for maximum effect, so they do not repeat this offense. Why do we believe this? Because there already exists, however, with physical harm. In Malaysia and Saudi Arabia, petty thieves are punished by the court, by the state, by cutting off their finger. Murderers are punished by being executed. This punishment, despite being harsh and inhumane, delivers straight and effective effects to reducing the criminal rates in that country, even lower than America, even lower than any first world country. That is why we believe that this technology, despite inflicting pain, but does not deliver actual physical pain, is more effective than jail time. Also, the other side of the house fails to repeatedly advocates the use of jail time as punishment instead of this technology. However, because it is short to say, more humane. It is simply a time freeze. They can learn what they did. They can think about what they did. However, they fail to guarantee that someone in jail will be free from mental problems and physical problems. Jail isn't simply just someone sitting down inside a cell. No, there are other inmates. There are staff, and there are dangers that come with them. It is the dangers of being an inmate, being hurt by other inmates, being abused by the staff, is that it exists. It exists. The other side of the house acts that this problem does not exist. That is why we have a problem with their argument. They also do not take into account that with inmates and prison staff, there also can happen riots. Even recently, last year, there happened a riot where a few inmates escaped and a few were killed and even injured. They fail to understand that prison time has its risks. Therefore, that is why we believe that this technology is a quick way, is the perfect alternative to prison time, because it is a quick way for someone to be punished instead of long jail time. Again, we would like to reiterate that pain is the most extreme feeling that a human being can feel. That is why we believe that despite being such a short-term trauma, it gives maximum effect. However, the other side of the house also keeps saying the protection of victims. Saying that this pain will not make the offenders afraid.
Cheaper. As have been mentioned by my leader, this cost is an investment towards public safety. It is not imperative that we jail the offenders. What is imperative is that those who are rightly prison remains in prison for their remaining term. Those who are falsely accused in this case can at the very least have the hope, have the slight ray of hope for their convictions to be either upheld or to be removed. If technology to cause physical harm, if the technology that can simulate physical harm be implemented, those solutions are unable to be reversed, as have been mentioned. And yet the government have yet to address these points. What about the current pandemic? This is a temporary issue that is quite high in popularity, but again are unsubstantial. There are already solutions to this current pandemic solutions, especially in crowding prisons, that relies on technology that the second speaker have mentioned for house arrest. Those already exist. Those aren't, to say that they are the solution as a part of a solution with the physical simulating technology is unfair. And again, the pandemic is a temporary measure. We will overcome this pandemic, and afterwards we will not see the benefits over the dismerits of this policy if we were misguided by the pandemic to implement this policy. What about the effects on families? What about those who are falsely imprisoned? We hear you. We can understand the perspective of the victims, but jail does have the facilities for families of offenders to visit. They have monthly visits. They can reduce their sentence through community contributions, and those measures are, at the very least, connects those who are in jail and the families of themselves. And what hasn't been mentioned is why not. And I think it's quite a disgrace that the government dares to say why not as a policy. Why not is not what it's not a basis for our criminal justice system. What the victims want, again, is not a substantial basis for our justice system. To say that, to simply imply that what the victims want will be best for our society, would be ignoring those who are falsely convicted. Would be ignoring those who are ignoring those who are injustifiably betrayed by the legal justice system. Now, I will address some of those points made by the second speaker, like apply for certain cases. This technology will only apply for certain cases. Even in the case that she has provided, which is drug abuses, she's still in the government is still in the mental mind and in the wrongly perspective of how we perceive drug abuses victims. The victims are those who committed drug acts. To say that drug abuses should be punished is a rather dystopian future. We've already made progress that treat those who are victims of drug abuses, of those who committed drug abuses, as victims themselves, and to blatantly say that those can be punished with pain, with mental pain, would be doing years of progress a disservice. The second speaker then went off to a tangent about technology. None of us as the opposition, neither Jason or I, have mentioned opposing technology in the criminal justice system. Why are they making the point that we are against those technologies. We are not against, for example, data mapping. We are not against reforming those sanctions that are unfairly treating those who are falsely convicted. What we are saying that this policy is not ready for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition, for that fine speech. To close the substantive case of proposition, I call upon the proposition whip here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. I am the third speaker from the government team, and I will sum up our team's case. So the motion for our debate is assuming a technology exists which simulates the harm inflicted on victims without physically harming the user. This House will use that technology to punish offenders rather than jail time. So we're from the government team believe that this statement is true. Like the biggest impact in technology has had on law field has been proven by its effect in the field. So, of course, it requires an advance in technology, such as artificial intelligence being used in modern software, such as streamlined communication and etc. So, before I go into the clash of the debate, I will say some of the rebuttals. So from the first speaker from the opposition team, I believe has tried to tell you that there's a bias in technology, right, before. So we think that is false because the technology that we are talking about is proven to be effective, and even though it is proven that it is effective to use, it still needs some advancements, but that is not something to worry about. And then about how our first speaker has spoken to you about the research has shown that prison is not effective as it does not reduce time despite placing criminals in prison. It may be that offenders are encouraged to reoffend after finishing their sentence in prison. So despite of that, we also have like a lot of cons of jail time, as my first speaker said, about how the taxpayer has to pay to care for a prisoner. But the first opposition speaker also said that the cost is not for the offender, but it is related to the government. However, government lift up from the people, from the tax, even though it is quite related to more government, but the cost being used in the prison is still, the money still came from the people, from the tax. So having an investment for safety is great, but again, is it really that effective? Is it really the first solution that came up to your mind when it comes to this saying technology, that maybe technology could do better than traditional way? And then about the effect on families is, as my first speaker already said, some people is prone to mental health concerns. And from the opposition team, I heard that they were saying that why not put some offenders in prison? Like this could be a solution also, because families doesn't make up a really big matter, because there are family visits time and other thing that could be a solution for their mental health. But again, it's just for certain cases, like the research also shown that the prison is not really effective, as it does not reduce time despite placing criminals in prison. And speaking about the crowding problem, it's not effective because why is it not effective? It is actually very incorrect to think that it's not possible to transmit disease in the prison or whatever, especially saying that the pandemic is just a temporary situation, a situation that we will eventually overcome. But the thing is that this pandemic is the limitation of our debate today. So saying that the temporary situation of the pandemic is not really making up the arguments. And then about again, we does not support physical harm, because if we're seeing from the beneficial lens, it also actually made lives easier in terms from the people who are related in the field, so they can focus more on the technically complex jobs. For example, let's say a man who is currently involved in a drugs case, he uses drugs, he is involving looking through some clauses to see if anything needed to be flagged up. Technology did much of the preliminary work. One of the experts also said that they are noting that property deals are done more quickly now using these technology. And then with that being said, speaking about the discrimination that has been up before, and then saying that it's not fair for some cases, such if let's say there are serial cases, and then data mapping crime, drug uses, drugs abuse. Again, this technology is not for all cases. We allow assuming this because we have certain policies. And then who said that violence?
I'm sorry, Anin, we couldn't hear you.
Hi, Comedy, can you please pause the stopwatch? Yeah.
I'm sorry, my connection is unstable. I will continue.
Okay, yes, you can continue now.
Okay, thank you. So ultimately, however, using technology in law could save time, could save money. But actually, before allowing to use this technology, everything is needed to be checked thoroughly by an expert before it is signed off. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, as stated in our first and second speaker's argument, in conclusion, we are agree with assuming a technology exists which simulates the harm inflicted on victims without physically harming the user. So we clearly stand to win this debate, and with this point, I'm very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Proposition Whip, for that fine speech. To close the substantive case of opposition, I call upon the Opposition Whip here.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening for both sides, opposition and government, as well as the ladies and gentlemen. I will represent on behalf of the opposition team. First of all, what we get from the government is not only heartless, but they are also what we as opposition get from the government is they are really heartless. First of all, they say that the technology can be improved later. That is really cruel. Do not play with justice system. Do not play with it. You say that, well, if the technology gone wrong, it can be improved later. How could you say that? How could you play around with justice system, which includes if the people, if someone who is falsely accused get the same thing, get the failed technology and the image is irreversible, what will you say? That is real dangerous. And also, the technologies are inherently built by society, and
and the society is prone to be influenced by some biases. So therefore, every society has bias against other society, and yeah. So therefore, if we deny those biases, then and saying that, well, our technology is unbiased, blah 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 blah. But if you deny that, it will be you are denying injustice in the criminal justice system, which means that you are mocking the actual purpose of the criminal justice system itself. And also, if we harm the mental of the already mentally deranged person, then it will not bring the better, but it will bring the worst thing. And they can be more deranged, they can be more dangerous. And
people are going to be traumatic and they never actually have the capability of the healing process at the very first place, right? We believe that this is so harmful in the end of the day. We don't want this to be this in years of the house. Yep, but before that, yeah.
Okay, how could you guarantee that conventional jail will not affect a huge problem with the mentality itself? So can you explain us about this kind of things? Thank you.
Okay, we believe that first thing first, we already explained about how rehabilitation is also part of criminal justice system, and it exists in prison because they serve time right there, right? In when they are serving times, they're not only sitting in jail, right? But second of all, even if it happens, it also happens in both sides of the house, right? Why you think that mental torture is something that is exclusive in years of the house? We believe that in years of the house, they're still going to be exist. And also notice in years of the house, social punishment are still going to be exist, which is going to be even more harmful in the end of the day. We don't think that mental health for the perpetrators is important, and second about why it's exclusively burdening in our of the house. And third of all, let's analyze, right, about how protection to the society in the end of the day. So governments of the house claim that in their of the house, perpetrators will going to be better and they won't do another offense, right? First thing first, they never actually explain about this. But even so, we don't think that this is enough, right? Because we already explained about how in their of the house they skip one of the most important thing regarding rehabilitation, which is this is the part where criminal justice system gives to people so that they can re-enter society peacefully and like most likely do not do any criminal offense, right? So we see that this is going to be worse for the society, right? Because we don't think that first this is giving a deterrence for them, because we need to talk about the actor that we're talking about. Like this perpetrators is not a normal human being like us, right? So and it's going to create even worse because they serve this pain because they think that they already pay for their sin. And especially when we're talking about these people, they're probably a masochist psychopaths that is like doesn't feel any pain, or this is probably just going to trigger them even more to like doing more things. This is going to be worse, right, for people for the society in general, regarding on how they don't get the rehabilitation, and second about how the psychology of them thinking that they already paid the sin because they already feel the exact same pain as this victim do. They don't have any more they don't even have any more remorse to them. They don't even have they don't even feel remorse towards this victim. We don't think that, and they probably can do this even more often, right? So we don't think that this is not. So what does it shows to you, right? It shows to you that in governments of the house, they never actually repair anything for anyone, right? We already proved to you about first why the perpetrators are still going to re-offense this criminal action in the very first place. So this, and also about how it really unfair for the victim where the closure of having healing time in the end of the day are being fixed, and also about how this will probably be a danger to society in the end of the day. We believe that this is all already being proven in oppositions of the house, right? And notice about how governments of the house never actually explained about this, and so that's why we believe that oppositions of the house should win this debate. Proud to
You're welcome. All right, you're welcome. The third speaker from the opposition team spent 6 minutes and 54 seconds. Now we move on to the reply speech from the opposition team. You may start your speech anytime.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So there are a few points of clashes in this debate. The first one is the effectiveness of jail. So the government side of the House keep on emphasizing the role of criminals in society, the responsibilities that they have as fathers, sons, brothers, etc., etc., but also fail to take into account that apart from being a father, apart from being a parent, apart from being somebody's son and daughter and blah, 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 they are also offenders. They also bring harm towards the society. They also seem to never take into account the victims, what the victims have, that the victims also have responsibilities towards the society, that the victims are also a part of the society, and the justice for them. They fail to take into account the justice for them. They seem to not engage in our cries for the victims' justice and how the victims deserve way more than these criminals, a peaceful life with security and without the knowledge and with the knowledge that and with the knowledge that they have they will be leading a better life than the prisoners than the criminals that has assaulted them. So that is the first point of clash that I think our side of the House has won. And the second point of clash that I would like to bring is the ineffectiveness of their solution, of the government side of the House's solution. So they never give a step-by-step analysis of how this will guarantee that the criminals will be responsible in society if they do not have jail time. So when we've already emphasized that the characteristics of these criminals being, abusers, domestic abusers, and also sexual assault, assaulters, offenders, and blah, 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 they also failed to engage with our argument regarding the protection of the victims from these type of people. So if implemented, this will determine the safety of the victims, and that is something that they fail to engage. And they keep on emphasizing that their mechanism, that their mechanism is also very effective in terms of financial problems, saying how jail time is very is eating away our tax money and blah blah blah, but also not take into account how this technology will also play into finances as well. And then the third clash that I have to bring up is the government is humanity. So the government side of the House contradict themselves by saying that saying and arguing that this technology will give enough trauma for the person receiving the punishment to the point that they will not try to do it again, and so that they can reintegrate into society, and simultaneously saying that this is humane. So they fail to engage in our argument, questioning the ethics of this in the criminal justice system, where I already stated, or I already asked to them, how will we be different from these criminals if we were to implement this, this motion. So with that being said, I can confidently say that our side of the House, we can confidently say that the status quo is the ideal situation, and that we do not need for this motion to be implemented. So our side of the House wins.
All right, thank you. Now we move on to the reply speech from the government team. You may start your speech anytime.
I will start my speech from 3, 2, 1. Why we need to win from this case and emotion, ladies and gentlemen? We're talking about this. They are failed to break our stance and our motion to the ladies and gentlemen. They only stand behind the victim, but we make a good solution between the victim and the criminal itself, ladies and gentlemen. When they are talking about the victims, already talking about the victim and every single time, but they don't have any kind of mechanism to help the victim itself. They're only talking about this kind of thing. We need to help the victim by making a lot of people or the offenders to go to in the jail. But actually, does it realize to make a good thing to the people? Because there's a lot of things like the second speaker said previously that there is no kind of mechanism to heal that kind of problem to the all people. It is not comparable, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we like to talk about this kind. And the second, they said about jail, but there is no clarification from them to explain about the effect from the affected family itself. So they're talking only about the victim, but there is no like a mechanism for the offenders. They're only talking about the physical things. They're talking about the mental things. That is not the things that we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This is not like what we are trying to find, ladies and gentlemen. We're trying to propose the solution that we are thinking that is good for the victim. We are talking about good for the offenders, but they're only talking about the victim, and the victim every single time. And the third, they're talking about we do agree that the offenders deserve to accept the punishment. But the second speaker side of the house, like my third speaker of the house, said that the speaker are not understand that technology also offer the punishment. We provide you with the punishment, but and the other kind of things, we also we do believe that like the mentally punishment will also being deserved to them, ladies and gentlemen. But they are only talking about the healing process and other kind of thing. But we're talking about the other thing, ladies and gentlemen. Our third speaker answered about when the second speaker from the government side of us talking about it is good thing to give people a punishment mentally, but they also say that the offenders are deserved to punish. It contradicts with their argument when they are trying to rebuttal our argument. So that's why they are failed to understand the motion. They are failed to understand what kind of things that we are trying to propose in every single time and in current motion, ladies and gentlemen. So we are talking about the other things. This is the perfect alternative. We agree that maybe it will be a good deal with this current way. Many people are isolated in jail to make they are difficult to pursue their life. It exacerbated because all the people having like this kind of problems, criminals, families, and other kind of thing. So that's why we're trying to propose not only for the victim, but also we're trying to make sure that all the people can have their peaceful life, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we need to win this debate. And the other things, from the opposition teams of the house talking about they are failed to understand about the context and our argument. Example, the difference between the example and argument for our team. When we are talking about Malaysia, we are talking about the goals, not only they're talking about the goals, but actually we're talking about the example that they need to realize, ladies and gentlemen. It breaks down not our motion, but it breaks down their motion, ladies and gentlemen, which is it is contradictory. And the other one, they are failed to break our statement. Because they are having a contradictions when they are always talking about the healing process. Then they are talking also about the people deserve to have or the offender deserve to get a punishment to be justice, but they're talking about the people healing process and other kind of thing for the offenders. So how could it is a need to be deal with this kind of motion, which is this is truly contradictory with what they are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So we are very solid to clarify to ladies and gentlemen that we need to want to this debate, ladies and gentlemen. We are giving the solution when people are facing a complex and stressful life. It is a human to provide a decent punishment. We also having a stand to talk about the victim and also the offenders. Our solution is relevant with the people. We are trying to give a punishment to offenders. We are also giving this chance to the victim to have their own way, and then both can do their jobs and their responsibilities. So there is no problem with this kind of cases. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we need to win this debate because they are failed to understand the motion and context with all the things their argument that's invalid. We so propose to propose. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's the last one from the reply speech from the government team. Spends 4 minutes and 23 seconds. All right, that's the end of today's debate. Because this is a silent round, and yeah, you may leave the breakout, the Zoom. But before that, from the educator, Kak Ensa, any feedbacks or anything before they leave?
Perhaps because this is a silent round, there is no feedback, but after the announcement, feel free to approach me if you have any questions. So yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Karensa. For all the participants, thank you for participating. That's the end of today's debate. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye, Kak. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kak.
Thank
Thank you,
you, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Good luck.